Hello again. Before we go on, there's just time to mention that our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Fernand Bouillon and Harry Breur. It's performed by Jean-Jacques Perret, who has kindly given his permission for us to use it. And now here's Elizabeth with some local football news.
Sorry, I had athletics there. Football. Enfield Town are holding trials during June for next year's Under-21s development squad. The Under-21s won last season's inaugural Ryman North Under-21 League and will be the primary feeder team to the first team next season. Trials are by invitation only and will be held in Enfield on June the 14th and the 21st. Further details, plus an application form, are available at the Enfield Town Football Club website.
Saracens face a tough task if they're to progress through to the knockout stages of the new European Rugby Champions Cup after being drawn in an extremely strong-looking pool of three. Sarries, who lost in the final of last season's Heineken Cup, were placed among the top tier of seeds as a result of finishing top of the Aviva Premiership. But they seem to have received little benefit from this after being paired with Irish giants Munster, top French side Clermont-Auvergne and Premiership rivals Sale. Only the pool winners are guaranteed a spot in the quarter-finals of the 20-team competition. Meanwhile, Saracens have announced 4 pre-season fixtures to help them prepare for the new campaign. Sarries will visit Montpellier on July 25th before hosting London Scottish at Allianz Park on August 15th. Welsh region, the Ospreys, will provide the opposition at the Honourable Artillery Company in the City of London on August 21st, while their pre-season programme concludes with a trip to Bedford on August 29th.
This is a notice about the rugby. Enfield Ignatians will open their 2014-15 campaign with a trip to South Woodham Ferrers on September the 13th. The Ignatians will host Braintree at Donkey Lane on September the 20th in their first home fixture of the new season. Owing to the promotion of Ipswich to London 1 North and the relegation of Stowmarket and Lowestoft and Yarmouth last term, there will be less travelling for the Ignatians. There are also 2 Essex-based newcomers, London 3 winners champion and old runners-up Old Cooperians. This, relegated from London 1 North last term, will mean a trip to Norfolk with Holt, the other East Anglian side in the division. The other sides in the league are Saffron Walden, Chelmsford, Rochford 100 and Basildon, with Ignatians out to improve on last year's 6th place when they scored a record 100 tries.
Winchmore Cricket. Winchmore Hill drew with Shepherd's Bush in the Middlesex County Cricket League on Saturday the 8th after failing to remove their visitors. Shepherds won the toss and installed their hosts into bat, with Winchmore making 212 all out. In reply, the visitors made 180 for 9 in their 45 overs. The draw sees Winchmore Hill remain bottom of the league table. Enfield also drew after visitors Harrow failed to bowl them out. The hosts won the toss and elected to bowl first, removing their visitors for 162. Harrow couldn't remove their hosts, who finished on 162 for 8 from their overs. Holt White's Trinibys saw their Saracens Hearts League Division 1 clash against Luton Town and Indians cancelled, while in Division 3, North Enfield's match against Sawbridgeworth Seconds didn't go ahead either.
This is athletics. Enfield and Haringey Harriers sprinter Chijundu Uja has become just the 5th Briton to record a time of less than 10 seconds in the 100 metres. The 20-year-old crossed the line in just 9.96 seconds in FBK Games in the Netherlands on Sunday the 8th, to record the 3rd fastest 100 metres by a Brit ever. Only Linford Christie, 9.87, and James Dasulu, 9.91, boast quicker times than the Londoner, who beat his previous best of 10.17 in Loughborough last month. The Londoner also broke the British under-23 record with his time in Hengelo and is the current European 100 metres junior champion. Perhaps he'll be an Olympic champion one day.
And finally, with the sport, Enfield squash star Alison Waters will use the disappointment of her injury-disrupted 2010 Commonwealth Games as extra motivation when she competes in this summer's Games in Glasgow. Waters, 30, the world number 6, has been included in England's 9-strong squash team for the Games, which begins in the Scottish capital on July 23rd. She heads into the Games following a semi-final defeat in the British Open in Hull last month, where she lost out to eventual winner Nicole David in the semi-finals, but is keen to accentuate the positives. My preparation hadn't been that great going into it, so at the start of the winter I definitely have taken semis. Losing to Nicole, obviously, she's number 1, so it's always going to be tough. At least I finished the season as a semi-finalist, as I build up now towards the Commonwealths.
After more than half a century, the Rose Fair organisers thought it would be fun to have a Hawaiian theme for this year's event in Forty Hill. The chair of the Parent-Teacher Associations of Forty Hill School, Marina Zucconi, said, "After the great success of last year's circus, we wanted something else to grab everyone's attention, and we think we've succeeded. Visitors will need to be prepared for a totally tropical afternoon." As well as Li Aloha, the UK's leading Polynesian dance company, a group of beautiful hula dancers, there are some really original attractions. There will be a surfboard simulator on which you can enjoy the thrills and spills of the high waves without getting wet, of course. As much fun for spectators as it is for the rider waiting for that moment of wipeout. A jet ski ride, paddle boats in the Pacific Ocean, a Hawaiian rock face to climb, a super height slide, and hopefully a beach. This will all be set to the wonderful sound of steel pans provided by Bloomfield School. The event takes place in the beautiful secluded meadow in between Forty Hill School and Jesus Church, and despite its exotic theme, the day will retain its country fair feel that local residents all love. All the old favourites such as homemade tea and cake, tombolas and a grand raffle with some excellent prizes will be at the fair. All at very affordable prices, with some quirky stalls such as plate smashing. Some fantastical holders have signed up, so there will be a chance to browse and possibly find something really unique to buy. One of the most special things about this year's Rose Fair is the amount of young local talent that is scheduled to play on stage, include Ella Moore, Maria Evangelou, and some new, very talented young Enfield super songwriters. After the attractions have finished at 4 p.m, the bar, food and music will continue into the early evening with While the Cat's Away jazz band and the award-winning Raw Deal playing. The entrance fee has been reduced to £1.50 for adults, with nothing to pay for concessions and children. This looks set to be a bargain for what has turned out to be a mini musical festival. Unfortunately, not all will hear about it, but it sounds really good fun. Everything's happening on the same day. This is happening on Saturday, the 14th of June. You may not get the tape in time.
Luminous yellow graffiti that reads "Whites Not Welcome" has been found outside the entrance of a primary school. Parents dropping their children off to Prince of Wales Primary School in Salisbury Road, Enfield, last Wednesday were disturbed by the graffiti at the back entrance to the school in an alleyway off Mollison Avenue. A second graffiti has also been painted, an arrow pointing to the school's direction that reads Islamabad. Further messages were later found on a nearby footbridge. One read, "Enfield Council loves an immigrant," spelling immigrant incorrectly, and another says, "Freeloader EU scum." Mother Jasmine Nathan, who sends her children to the school, has urged the school to deal with the issue. She said, "There is often graffiti on that footpath which is unfit for children's viewing, and it rarely gets cleaned up. We shouldn't have to explain it to our young children, and I hope this is quickly sorted out. It's the school's duty of care and has done nothing so far. My eldest child was particularly distressed and confused." Another parent who didn't wish to be named said, "It leaves a bad taste and looks really bad on the school. I want to see it cleared as soon as possible." Cabinet Member for Environment, Councillor Chris Bond, said Enfield Borough Council would react quickly to deal with the graffiti. He said, "We're removing this graffiti as a matter of urgency. We have a large, multicultural and harmonious community in Enfield, which embraces its diversity. Pardon me. Racism of any form is unwelcome in this borough." A Metropolitan Police spokesman said, "Police were called at 8:08 a.m. on Wednesday, June the 4th, to reports of racially offensive graffiti on the pavement in Salisbury Road. No arrests have been made, and inquiries continue." The Enfield Independent contacted Prince of Wales Primary School, but they declined to comment.
The government has quashed an appeal from a traveller family to set up a permanent home in the Green Belt in North Enfield. Traveller Jim Lavin first submitted a planning bid to Enfield Council in 2012 to use a piece of abandoned land beside Derwin Nursery in Tingey's Top Lane, Cruise Hill, as a permanent site for 3 static caravans, a utility building, a septic tank and fencing. The site had been developed previously, but is situated on Greenbelt land. The bid was rejected by the Council's Planning Committee in March last year, and the travellers decided to appeal against the decision to the Planning Inspectorate. However, that appeal has now been rejected on the grounds that the development would harm the Greenbelt site. The inspector's report recommended the appeal be dismissed and the planning application rejected. Although the recommendation was to dismiss it, Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, Eric Pickles, confirmed the decision by calling it in. A report from his office published last week states the Secretary of State concludes that insufficient very special circumstances have been demonstrated to outweigh the harm to the Green Belt as to justify granting either temporary or permanent planning permission. Planning consultant Alison Heen, who has been acting for the Lavin family, told the Advertiser, "I'm disappointed and surprised. There's a lot going for this site, and it begs the question, if not here, then where? This decision actually puts a lot of pressure on the council. Local authorities, particularly in central London, are struggling to house people. They're going to have to make provision for travellers somewhere, and this site is very suitable." A spokesman for the council said, "Enfield is an inclusive borough which welcomes people from all backgrounds, but all our communities have an obligation to seek the relevant consent for any development they may wish to make in our borough."
Mayor Chowdhury Anwar has retired as both mayor and a councillor after performing his last mayoral duty at a D-Day commemoration event in Winchmore Hill on Friday. Mr Anwar, 76, who stepped down after a 10-year tenure as a Labour councillor for Ponders End Ward, told the Advertiser that he would remain active within the borough's voluntary sector. Speaking at an event at Reardon Court in Cosgrave Close, a supported housing scheme run by Enfield Council, to commemorate the 1944 D-Day invasion, the outgoing mayor said the past 12 months had been exciting. He said, "I've met so many great people and I will continue working with them. It has been an exciting and very enjoyable year. I will continue to be involved in the voluntary sector, particularly within the black and minority ethnic community in Ponders End." Mr Anwar said that he had always intended to resign as a councillor this year in order to fully commit himself to the voluntary work he has been doing in the borough since 1983, when he first moved to Enfield and headed up the Racial Equality Council. Since then, he has acted as chairman of a raft of voluntary organisations, including North London Asian Care, the Bangladesh Welfare Association of Enfield, Enfield Voluntary Action and the Ponders End Community Development Trust. Mr Anwar said he would now focus on getting more people from ethnic minorities into work, the voluntary sector and politics. He added, "People from black and minority ethnic communities are not getting involved in the mainstream enough, and that worries me. As people from the black, Caribbean and Asian communities, we are still not seen very much in public life and in important positions. But the fact is, we are all part of the same community. I believe there is only one future, and that is one of togetherness, Without that, there is no future. A new mayor will be elected at a full council meeting tonight, and that's Wednesday, the 11th of June.
Well, it's good to hear that about Mayor Chandri. He came to the our listeners' Christmas party and a couple of other events I've seen him, so well done. And now this is about the artists who throw open their doors to the public. Hundreds of people flocked to Palmer's Green and Southgate last weekend for the annual Open Studios and Art Trail. Artists and sculptors opened their studios to the public, while visitors were also able to view works in shop windows and on street walls. As well as pieces by 44 artists from London and some from further afield, including Ireland, there were arts and crafts workshops for adults and children. Carl Sweeney, who designs and makes bespoke timber wooden boxes for jewellery, watches and rings, came all the way from Dublin to showcase his work. He said, "This is a wonderful event and a great opportunity for me. For these boxes I use very fine wood such as sycamore, pear and wenge, which is sourced from West Africa. I buy the wood roughly cut from a sawmill and start with rough pieces and machine them. The bigger ones take around 35 hours to make and cost £1,200. For sculptor Claire Rolls, who only took up her craft 6 years ago, it was the first time she exhibited at the event, now in its third year. She said, "I started using bicycle wheels, that's sort of my niche thing. I left college one day, saw the London Eye, and that's where I got the idea. I like using it instead of a canvas as a way of expressing what I feel and think about. I worked as a counsellor before, and that experience is a valuable resource of inspiration." Helen Kaminski, who works from her home studio in Crouch End, had a number of works on display at Extraordinary Designs in Chase Road, Southgate. The mixed media artist said, "I used aquarelle and water-based paints and a lot of collage. I'm very pleased to be here again. I try to keep my work affordable, and all the paintings cost around £200. Organiser Dan Mayer, who designs bespoke artwork and installations for interiors, added, "We had more artists than last year. It was exciting because there was a huge amount of high-quality work on display." That's jolly interesting.
And now I've got two contrasting stories about housing. The first is that 2 MPs have welcomed new figures that 100 homes have been bought using the Help to Buy scheme this year. Conservative MPs for Enfield North, Nick Dubois, and Enfield Southgate, David Burrows, backed the scheme's impact in the borough. The scheme means that households can access a 75% mortgage without requiring a huge deposit, but they must still pay a 5% deposit and have it backed with 20% from the government. The scheme has been aimed at giving people who have not been able to save or cannot afford a deposit a chance to get onto the housing ladder. Mr. Dubois said, "Lots of people in Enfield who are renting their homes would love to be able to buy, but have until now been prevented from doing so by the huge deposits required by the banks." Now, on the other hand, more than 60 homes have been repossessed for tenancy fraud, and a further 75 are expected to be seized this year. Enfield Borough Council and Enfield Homes say they will continue to crack down on illegal subletting and fraud. Councillor Ahmet Oykner, Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Housing, said, "I'm delighted to hear that so many houses which have been let illegally or fraudulently have been repossessed. People who sublet council properties cause misery, as it ends up with them losing their right to council property and the unfortunate tenant being made homeless. Council housing is scarce, and we need to ensure that every single property we have goes to the right person and is used as a home for a family in need, not to line a fraudster's pocket." Councillor Andrew Stafford, Cabinet Member for Finance and Property, said, "Those who defraud the Council of Housing or vital money need to be punished. It's gratifying to know that so many people who thought they would get away with housing fraud have been caught and lost their right to a home."
The new group leader for the Conservatives in Enfield has promised to create a united party in the future. Councillor Terry Neville, the representative for Grange Ward, will now lead the Enfield group following heavy defeats at the council elections last month, which led to a 19-seat majority for Labour. The party lost seats in Chase, Southgate, Green and Bushel Park following disputes within the party in the run-up to the election. Councillor Neville says he is focused on keeping the party together. He said, "We need to get our associations working together and we need to put some of these problems we have had behind us and move on. The Conservative Party only works well when it works together. In order to take us forward, we need to organise ourselves differently and we need to be holding the council to account more because of its majority. We want to get the best people to serve our group. I want to stop the mischief making and I believe our 22 councillors are of top quality." Councillor Neville, appointed at a group meeting on Monday, said, "A lot of Liberal supporters have fled the party and pushed their votes to Labour. There were special circumstances, but it is a pattern. The coalition has had to make some very harsh decisions, and those decisions will have affected everyone one way or another. People do react." Mr Neville, who also confirmed the shadow cabinet with Joanne Laban as deputy leader, replaces outgoing Tory leader Councillor Michael Lavender, who stepped down from the role after 4 years. Councillor Lavender, a full-time lawyer who joined the council in 1998 and has spent the past 15 years as deputy leader and leader, said, "I think it's time for a change, but I won't be sad. 15 years is a long time."
Pensioners gathered on Friday to share their memories of World War II at an event to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Residents of Reardon Court, a supported housing scheme run by Enfield Council in Cosgrove Close, Winchmore Hill, took a trip back in time with an afternoon of song, dance and performance. The residents recalled those days when they were part of the war effort. Bill Hicks, 88, who was serving on a Royal Navy destroyer in the Southern Atlantic, said, "I missed the invasion because I was stationed on convoy duties in the Atlantic. I was with the finest men you will ever find, but the men who went onto the beaches in Normandy were absolutely the greatest. They knew what they were going into, and yet none of them shirked from their duty. It was terrifying, and they walked into it. If I was to live another life, it would be alongside the same men." Soldier Norman Tilley added, "Don't think about me, think about my mates. They're down there." The pensioners were entertained and belted out a series of classic songs, including Run Rabbit Run by Flanagan and Allen, Roll Out the Barrel by the Cockney Governors, and The Lambeth Walk by Robin Rose. They were joined by the Mayor of Enfield, Chowdhury Anwar, who was performing his last duty before his year finished. He told the residents, "It's been a great pleasure to stand here to listen to some of your D-Day memories. Many harrowing accounts of that time stir our thoughts and our own personal memories. We cannot underestimate the price that was paid at those battles on the Normandy beaches, and it is only right that we remember and learn about them."
Here's another story about the D-Day landings. The son of a Second World War hero has made some of his father's memorabilia public to mark the 70th anniversary of D-Day. The items, including a German soldier's leather Nazi wallet and a letter sent to every soldier in the build-up to Normandy invasion, have sat hidden in John Bishop's house since they were passed to him by his mother at the age of 14. Now, as the world commemorates 7 decades since the Allied invasion of German-occupied territories in mainland Europe, the 73-year-old has decided to share some of the items collected by his late father, Sergeant Thomas Charles Bishop. Sergeant Bishop was among thousands of troops who stormed the beaches of Normandy in the largest British military operation that began the end of the Second World War. Aged 34, the former milkman from Walthamstow battled through France, Belgium and Italy with the pioneers before returning home in February 1946. He brought back with him the memories of horrifying and bloody war, as well as a collection of memorabilia that gives a glimpse into the life of a soldier at that time. Mr. Bishop of Berkeley Road, Edmonton, said, "He never spoke about the war really. He just said he hoped to God I would never have to see or go through anything like that." The significance of these items has grown on me over the years as I've got older, and I thought now was a good time to share them. The collection includes his father's military record book and a pocket propaganda booklet featuring several pictures of Adolf Hitler, as well as his military badges and medals. There are also some fascinating first-hand photographs believed to have been taken by Sergeant Bishop's comrade, including the signing of the official surrender by the German army. Sergeant Bishop passed away 32 years ago from a brain tumour at the young age of 56, but his legacy lives on in the memories of his son and the items he collected on his treacherous battle through Europe. Mr. Bishop said, "The generations coming behind me should realise what war is. It is not a Hollywood production. It is a devastating, a terrible thing. I have made sure my sons and grandsons know about that. I feel very proud that my father was part of it, and very proud that we can sit here today talking about it, because if the Nazis had won, we'd all be speaking German by now."
A baby boy had an eventful arrival into the world after the ambulance his mother was travelling in was involved in a nighttime accident on the way to hospital. Little Kedus Dawi was born at 12:10 last Thursday inside the ambulance with help from 4 paramedics and a midwife from North Middlesex Hospital. Additional help was called for from the hospital in Stirling Way, Edmonton, after the ambulance ferrying 21-year-old Maret Muru was involved in the collision with a car at 11:15 p.m. on Wednesday last week in White Hart Lane, Tottenham. Jane O'Driscoll, lead midwife at North Middlesex Birthing Centre, arrived at the scene to find the ambulance at the side of the road with one wheel on the curb before establishing the mother was in the later stages of labour and was unable to be wheeled or walk out of the ambulance. Paramedic Matthew Burns from the London Ambulance Service added, "We see a lot of patients going into labour, but the circumstances of what happened has made this one of the most dramatic we've ever dealt with. It was a real team effort to make sure the birth went smoothly, and I believe it did."
Well, we've reached the end of our programme for this week. Don't forget, your reader's representative, Diane de Jersey, is on 020-8805-6578 if you need any help with the talking newspaper. And please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the cassette into the packet, and return it to us as soon as possible so we can send out the next edition. And that'll be with you in 1 week's time. Thanks for being with us. From me, Elizabeth, Katherin, Audrey, and Robin, goodbye.